Yes, hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the webinar Discover Your Own Pattern. I would like to welcome you here tonight. My name is Jens Stürk, and I would like to take the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm a coach for personal development and leadership, and I guess looking back that I have collected a couple of experiences. And yes, I would like to share that with you. I hope you made yourself comfortable. I'll have my mug with coffee here, so I'm gonna have a sip every now and then, and I hope you made yourself comfortable too, and are ready to follow our webinar tonight. In order to give you certain guidelines, I have prepared a little agenda, what we call in German Ablauf, prepared for you just to give you certain guidelines how we're going to spend the time the next following 60 minutes. So I'll have a short introduction for the first 10 minutes, and don't worry, you don't need to introduce yourself at that point, not at all. By the way, the list of participants is covered, so you keep your privacy there on that end. And after the first 10 minutes of how we're gonna spend that hour together, we take a closer look to the fact why it is so important to identify the own patterns of behavior and what kind of difference it does make once you have recognized them and can act accordingly. Then the last 20 minutes, I would like to, or nearly the last 20 minutes, I would like to uh, make some space and some room for your questions. Uh, be so kind and have how shall I put that? Actually, I can't probably answer all your questions in details in terms of if you have a very personal challenging situation or facing a very personal challenging situation. I won't probably be able to resolve that here during the webinar, but you're most welcome to get in touch with me. You get also my email address at the end of this webinar, or further on Facebook. It's the company's name, Compando. No, this way, as it's shown here above my shoulder. All right. Yeah, and then the last 5 minutes we're gonna use for the close down, and I've got some spare time uh, for ending the session. Yeah, first of all, I would like to know from where my participants do come from tonight. So maybe you can just give me a hint through the chat channel and just type in from which area you're going to listen to this webinar. Okay. It's pretty quiet. Pretty quiet at this time. Then I would say we simply get started at that point. And yeah, let's roll through it. So what is the thing with the own personal patterns we're gonna follow during our whole life? Where do they come from, and what do they stand for at that point? First of all, patterns are useful. Patterns are very useful. They help uh, to manage our daily lives because they will automate, or they do automate, a lot of our interactions and a lot of our daily routines. We simply follow without thinking about them. And you maybe recognize some experiences from your own daily work where you just do things automatically. A very good example for that is driving in your car. Um, if you drive a car with a gear with gears and not an automatic one, You might remember your first days at driving school, the first lessons where you were thinking, "Oh my God, how can I handle that?" Looking into the mirror, on one hand, steering the car, changing the gears, having the brake under control and the accelerator at the same time. And now compare that with how you do nowadays. It goes just by itself. You don't need to think about that. So that is the part where pattern do come in very handy in our daily lives, whatever, and they're very useful at that point. But there are other edges, other parts of of our life where we do not like to have patterns at all, especially when it comes to very personal ways of reacting onto things, things we're gonna like and things we dislike. Um, that's where we very often are steered by pattern, which we haven't learned just by ourselves, but which have been given to us mostly by the society around us, very often directly from our families, yeah, and also very special from our parents, which is also very natural because those are and were the closest people we were looking at and we were trying to copy. Yeah. So there are two ways. The first way is either we have tried ourselves to copy people, just to be like they are, just to react and interact the same way they do because we were impressed, or even we wouldn't even question their behavior and just thought this is right that way. Or alternatively, um, that we have been brought up with certain conditions that our parents might have told us, well, if you do it this way, it's okay, but if you do it that way, it is not okay. And funny, wise enough, we're picking up that very fast. We are uh, do not even question those conditions which have been given by superiors or parents. We just accept them because what happens in our brain is our brain says, "Hey, they are much older, they are more experienced, they know how things are running. So therefore, don't question, just simply do." And even there, those pattern of behaviors were very useful when we were children or small because we don't know better. We simply just have to follow that because we don't have collected that kind of experiences at that time. So we simply follow. The thing is, we grow older and suddenly we just turn around and recognize we are 20, 25, or even older and recognize, hey, I still behave the same way. How can that be? I still behave as I would be like a teenager or a small child, uh, but I'm a grown up. So why doesn't why doesn't it change? Well, the thing is, pattern don't change that easily. Just to give you a short example, how that can control your life is an example I can give you just from my personal life or my personal experiences. Um, that when I was a child, I was very often asked by my sister when the soda went down, just to get down on the main level of our house we were living in at that time, to get some soda. And when you were down on the main level, it was very dark and it was a very long corridor. And so I had to switch on all the lights. And on the way back, of course, I didn't want to switch off the lights because who wants to have the dark in the back? Okay, so I left the lights on, and like an hour later or something, my parents came along that way, and they were uh, kind of shouting and saying, "Hello, um, are we the rich ones? Why is there light everywhere in the house when there's nobody in those rooms?" Okay, so far so good. About 30 years later, when I had a son, which was about the same age I was at that time, I recognized one evening that he went on the main level through all the rooms and then went up in the first floor again in his room and left all the lights switched on. And suddenly I could hear myself saying, "Are we the rich ones? There's light everywhere here in the house." And I went like, "Oops, I sound like my parents." And with that little example, it might show you how those pattern of behavior will be transferred from one generation to another generation. And I could even bet on that my grandma might have said the same to my parents or to my mother or to my father. So that is how things are carry on, and we never question them because they were right at the time when we were small. But now it's really the fact to look behind the curtain and to see, okay, what can we change? Why is it so important anyway to yeah, to change our pattern of behavior? Well, um, if we don't change it, or if we don't start to recognize it and change it, we are not living our life. We're living the life of our parents or whoever gave us those pattern or those advices. We simply follow the mainstream, what everybody did and what everybody still does. Yeah. For example, we go to church on every Sunday because you have to go to church every Sunday. Whether you are a believer or not a believer, you just simply do it automatically. But the question is really to listen to your inside, whether this is really what you want. Because at a certain stage, you figure out, I just spent half my life doing what I didn't really want to do. And the sooner you recognize that you're doing things you don't want to do, the sooner you can start to live your own life. And that is really the important thing at that point. I think when you just look on the slides, I think I've explained a little bit what these patterns are, and how you're going to identify them. How should I think about that? Is, well, yeah, be critical on this one. Be very critical and really listen, yeah, to your inside. And we come to that later a little bit. Listen to your inside if what you're doing is really what you love to do, what you're really longing to do. To go a little bit more deeper into the topic, it is probably pretty useful. Um, Again, to have a closer look to the kind of conditioning, we call it in my work area, we call it conditions, where you can very easily recognize those patterns. You might have heard statements like, "That's how it has been done in the past, and that's how we're going to do that now as well, because we always did that way." Yeah. This is a very common one. Another one is, you've been asked how you're doing on a day or when you meet someone, and you just automatically reply, "Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm great." Yeah. But if you really listen to your inside, you just may try to cover up because you don't feel great, but you just want to avoid that situation to explain why you're not feeling good. Because you might have learned that the easiest way to sneak out of that situation is just simply to say, "Oh, I'm doing fine, I'm great, I'm good," at that point. Another very famous one, well, nobody's gonna help me here, then I do it on my own. I don't need any help. Yeah, there's also a very common statement for certain patterns of activities. I just see we have another participant. Hi there, welcome. Um, yeah, another one is that's me. I don't need to change. That's the way I am. Yeah. That's also a very famous one. And another one, to give you an example, is to automatically say yes instead of no, because you have learned it's better to say yes, because then you get what you want, even though you don't want it. Uh, because then you get attention, you might get love, you might get um, recognition or respect. Oh, look, they do that, yeah. Instead of saying, no, I don't want to because I don't like to, because I don't feel like doing it. So these statements might just give you a slight hint how you can start to recognize your own pattern of behavior. So start observing yourself when you're within your routines every day, or when you're at work and do your errands or chants or whatever. Um, how are you reacting on your environment, on your colleagues, on your peers, or whatever? Do you do you very often automatically just reply with standard phrases like "I feel good," "Yes, that's me," or things like that? So try to look at that one, and you will be surprised how often you give statements where you afterwards may say, "Oh shoot, why did I say that? I didn't want to." Scary on one hand, but very, very, very interesting, I must admit, because really starting to take a closer look to those patterns of behavior is a kind of a journey which brings you much closer to your inner to your inner personality. And to give you a more clear picture, because it's a very complex topic, by the way, but to give you a more clear picture how you can start to identify those pattern of behaviors, is when I introduce you to the next slide here, where you see two people, which is the actually the very same person. So it's one person, but with two, let's call it individuals or shadow individuals. Yeah, that's the reason why I made them black and not colorful. And the one is the ego, and the other one is the yourself, the myself, the inner self, actually. You start by just taking a deep breath and saying, am I multiple persons? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. We all are. We all are. It's just simply natural. So, what's the difference between the ego and the myself or the inner self? The ego is uh, a product of your conditioning and the environment during the past of your life, while the inner self, that's really the essence of your being. Um, so just to give you an idea how that works, is the ego is that part within you which can be fearful, or has to deal a lot with self doubtness, uh, is also the one which is very jealous at some times, um, is the one who's longing for control, control over yourself, control over others. Uh, could also reflect in yeah, a little self awareness. Yeah, because I'm not important. I'm small. I'm nothing, or even just the opposite. Yeah, being overconfident. about yourself. These are always yeah, parameters how you can recognize it's not really yourself, your inner self, but your ego. And these statements, these conditions, they do come really from how we have been raised. If you were brought up in an environment where the main feeling was fear, yeah, how to carry on, uh, is there enough money at the end of the month, uh, how do I pay back money for the house or whatever, um, then the chances are pretty high that your ground pattern in your life are pretty much the same, because that's the way you've been brought up. That's the way how reality was at that time. So, but things have changed, and still we're talking about conditions coming from the outside. What those conditions do, they really cover up those things you see on the right hand side, the things which are all about yourself. And you could also see that there are not so many things listed on, because your inner self um, does not need a lot. It needs feelings to feel. It might have hunger, so it needs something to eat. It might be thirsty, so it needs something to drink. It needs sleep, and it needs love or sexuality. So these are the base facts what your inner self really needs for. Your inner self doesn't need fear. It doesn't need self-doubtness. It doesn't need anger. You don't need really that to survive. And if you just trying to recapitulate some situations where you were in deep anger, you might find out, wow, at the end of the day, it didn't help at all. It didn't help. I was angry, but it didn't help me in that situation. Yeah? Because it doesn't help your inner self. It only helps the ego to come up with clues to say, that's the reason why I am important. Because the ego looks always for, for proofs that the ego is important and that it has to be adhered to. Yeah, the ego will tell you, uh, you have to fight back. If somebody slaps you in your face, just slam that person back. No, you don't need to. You don't feel better afterwards. Probably. Now, but that inner voice which says, I'm so mad about that person, that is not your inner self. These, is, these are conditions which have been brought to you when you were probably young, teenager, age, yeah, where you said, okay, that kind of behavior, being angry or mad with somebody, is exactly the way I should react, which was true at those times, or maybe correct, not true, but correct, but it's not now when you're a grown up anymore. So that is something you really have to differentiate between the ego and the inner self. That is very important, because a lot of things we think we might need, we don't need, but it's just a replacement of our needs brought up by the ego, just to get a proof, hey, I'm still there, I'm important, yeah, and you can't get rid of me. So that goes a little bit deep into uh, psychologics, but should you have any questions to that, we will have the question and answer later on. And I just get some informations that the line breaks every now and then. Thank you. Yeah, I get a little warning here as well. I'm not quite sure how I can fix that right now during the webinar, but thank you very much for letting me know at that point. Yeah, so we're not talking about Sigmund Freud. We don't go that far tonight. But I hope that that little psychological background makes it a little bit easier for you to kind follow up on this one. Um, okay. How do I discover my own patterns? I just want to reply here to one of the participants. Um, Wait a second. You don't need to shut down your camera. Um, I think I need to keep mine on, but it should be fine with you just to stay online. I think the internet interruptions are on my side, not on your side. But thank you very much for letting me know. Yes, how do I discover? I mean, we have talked a bit now. Where do those conditions do come from? How do they look like? How can I recognize them at that point? And now it would be really beneficial for you to figure out, okay, what can I do against it, or how can I discover how I'm behaving? Yeah, and that I think is a very important point. Um, it's easy and hard both at the same time because really the way to get closer to your patterns has something to do with observation, just to observe yourself. That is easy said, but it's pretty hard on the other side to get a routine into that. And I would like to give you some hints how you can start with really to kick off to observe yourself at that point. So why do I do that? That is, it's all about asking questions. It's all about asking questions to yourself. You may also ask somebody else. You may also ask your partner, your friend, your girlfriend, whomever. But I think it is much better to ask yourself, to spend just a little bit time on your own and ask that to yourself, because the answer does not come from the outside. The answer comes from the inside. And I've listed up some questions you can start with, really to ask yourself. So maybe it's a good idea that you may sit down on your sofa or cuddle up in an armchair, or lay down on your bed with a notepad and something to write with, and start asking these questions to yourself and note down your answers. So it's, first of all, why do I do that? Ask yourself, why do I do that? I'm pretty sure you won't find an answer right as well. Yeah, I've just been asked, can I take a walk as well? Yes, of course. You can also take a walk. You can take a walk. I think the main thing is that you really be on your own, and yeah, take a walk. It's great. Yeah, go outside into the nature, because nature is also something which really clears your mind and focus on those questions. Then just make sure you take a little piece of paper where you have all those questions on. So yeah, why do I do that? Sounds simple, and I'm pretty sure you will not find an answer the first time you're asking that. It takes some rounds, some circles, until you can really start getting an answer to this one. Mm, the next one is, do I really like that? Uh, very often, very often we automatically given response to a question, just like, "Oh, do you enjoy your meal?" "Oh, yes, I do." And frankly speaking, you think, "Yucky, I hate it." Yeah, I don't like it at all. But you say, "Oh, yes, I like it." So the question is, do you really like it? And you will find a lot of things where you say very easily, no, I don't like that. That's the first step, but it's only the first step. Figure out what you don't like. That leads you to the next part, which is, what do I like? Funny, huh? It's very, very hard to start with what do I like, because the variety you can choose from is so huge that it's so hard really to pick things you really like. So it's much better to start with those things you don't like. And once you've have scribbled or wrote down a full-sized paper with what you don't like, the things you like, they do come automatically, because suddenly it starts shifting from the I don't like to the I'd like to have more of those. Yeah. So start with the I don't like, and then continue with the I love to, I like to stuff. Being mindful. I think that word is pretty much in fashion. Nowadays, everything has to be very mindful, even when we are at work. Oh, be mindful. Um, that is pretty much on vogue, so to say. But there's also a lot of truth in it. Being mindful. Try to stop being multitasking. Really, and I'm serious about that. Stop being multitasking, because you don't do things better, or you don't do more things in the same sequence at the same quality. It's much better to do it in a sequence, and really to do it step by step. And while you do some errands and tasks, and that can be as simple as something could be, really start from peeling the potatoes to emptying the dishwasher or whatever. Um, but do that mindful. Do it dish by dish, step by step. Yeah, because what you learn is to listen to your inner voice, to listen what's happening inside me. And it starts to settle a certain peacefulness in your mind, because you can really do it easily. There's nothing else to do but that, and that helps you a lot to focus on your feelings and on your own needs. Um, Okay, I just I just get a note. I would like to have more images on the slide. Yes, thank you for the hint. I think that might be a good idea, just also to have some more pictures. Else you just have to listen to my voice, or look at that little picture up on your screen, um, because things don't change. Yeah, thank you very much. I'll try to change that with the next slide. Yeah, so being mindful uh, sounds easy, needs certain practice, but from own experience, I can tell you that it's worth the time spent. Really, it's worth the time spent, because you're getting really close to what is it what I like. Do I like that, or is it something I just beer, or uh, I don't like it at all? It really brings you closer, being mindful. So give it a try. Start with little things. With everything I've listed here, do small steps. Don't have the target to be enlightened by the end of the week. Yeah, people have spent lifetimes and are not enlightened, and I think that step is too big. So really try to do small steps. Yeah, foot by foot, and really try to do things like uh, put up the laundry, or collecting things, or picking up things the next morning from the living room, whatever. But do that mindfulness, in mindfulness at that point. The next one is the perception of your body image, of also your how your body reacts. Um, what a lot of us have forgotten, kind of, because we all learned that, we had that from our first day on earth, is to listen to our body, but we kind of have not continued to develop that skill, to listen better to our needs. uh, Try to observe yourself when you do eat something. Do you eat because you feel hungry, or do you eat because you don't know what to do, or just to stuff time in between two slots where you have to wait for or whatever? Yeah. So really, uh, try to focus on what does your body wants to tell you, because there it comes from what you're really what you really want to have. Yeah. Um, just to give you an idea uh, or an example at that point, you're very much on the wrong way of behavior, which means not your own behavior. Uh, when you do something and you've got a bad feeling about that, yeah, you know that, yeah, you can remember a certain situation where you have done something, and while you were doing, um, you had a bad feeling. Can you remember? Can you just give me a yes or a no whether you had that in the past? Oh yeah, okay. So you recognize that. So that is a kind of a warning. That is a kind of a warning telling you, hey, you do something you don't really want to, or you do something you're not convinced about, or you do something which is not good to you. And to listen to that feeling, that is another way to approach to recognize your own pattern. Really to listen, what do I feel if I do something? Yeah. And if you've got a good feeling with that, then it's okay. Then it's really something which goes along to your inner will, to your basic needs and what you really want to have. But if you've got a funny feeling, and especially here in the solar plexus area, um, that is a sign that things are not quite the way they should be. Yeah. So really try to listen to what your body tells you. That is very important. And we have lost that kind of ability during our process being grown up once. Yeah. And scrutinize. So ask yourself, question yourself, um, challenge yourself with questions, for example, like, why does it always happen to me? I was in a situation where people were not friendly to me, or people didn't respect me, or whatever. So why does it happen? And why has it happened again? So there must be something with me which doesn't say something is wrong with me, but maybe my interaction follows a certain pattern which triggers my environment just simply to react always in a certain way. Because if that happens to you, that people don't treat you the right way, as an example, and those people are very different people, you're not dealing with every day with the very same persons, um, then you probably must have done something, or you behave a certain way which kind of triggers that reaction from others. Yeah. So try to observe yourself at that point a little bit. Yeah, is that something which can be followed up? Can I make myself clear with that one? Yeah. Okay. Just to give you a bit more on hand that you can deal with, and you may have just recognized it's all about questions. Yeah, and we don't. Uh, we don't like questions sometimes, not that much. Uh, can you hear me? Yes, I can. Well, not verbally, but at least text wise. So it's probably the internet connection a bit weak here. I apologize for that little technical limitation on that point. So, apart from those questions I've just offered to you, I would like to offer you some more questions, like, what kind of feelings do not exist in your life or in my life if you start asking that question to yourself? Um, So really go into that and try to find feelings where you say, I should feel that, but I don't. So really try to identify those kind of feelings, uh, what that could be. That could be um, I I can't become excited. Yeah, I yeah, I don't feel excitement so well, or I don't feel sadness. Yeah, because I've been told when I was a child, don't make such a sad face. Yeah, you've got all you need. And now bon voyage. Yeah. So we might have been taught to suppress certain feelings, yeah, not to let them come to the surface, yeah, or anger. Anger could also be another kind of feeling, yeah, that you can't really let those feelings out, express those feelings. It's not really the thing of getting caught into those feelings, but just to let them out, express them. And once they're out, it's fine. It's fine. Then we can now really let loose and say, okay, well, now it's out. Now I'm feeling better. Yeah. But just to let them come up to the surface so that they really have a chance to come out. So um, that is what I meant with feelings which do not exist in your life. Yeah, could be a very personal feeling of yours. Yeah, but very often fear, anger, um, those are typically the ones which are suppressed most. What kind of feelings are there, but you suppress them? Yeah, those were some examples, but that could even be much further, much further than the examples given. That could be that. Um, oh gosh, another example, except the ones I've already mentioned. Um, that could go as far as sexuality. That could go as far as um, jealousy, uh, the urge to control. Yeah, that those feelings have been suppressed, and that they're trying to find other ways really to come up. Yeah, if you try to be very relaxed, but within yourself you're kind of a control freak, it finds its way to come up, but not the way you want to. And then we are back to those patterns because you have never been taught or allowed to react according to your own needs. Yeah. So this is what I meant with uh, feelings which have been suppressed. Apart from suppressed, is to avoid feelings. That goes even further than the first two questions. To avoid feelings means that you even avoid certain situations, that you avoid to get into certain situations because you don't like the feeling which comes up with that. As an example, you are invited to a party, yeah, and you know that there's at least 30 people, and it's a birthday party, and you've been asked to hold a little speech um, to the one who's celebrating its birthday, and you don't like to go. You don't want to go because you don't have a good feeling going there and speak in front of all the people. Yeah, you already feel like having like something in your throat which doesn't allow you to speak, and you even have got the feeling that your voice is near to collapse. So not to get into that situation, um, and to avoid that feeling might make you not going there, yeah, not going to that birthday party. And then it really gets difficult, because if your behavior changes because of you avoid feelings, then you really need to see that you do something with that, that you really seek professional help with that one, because that goes really far over the edge when you adjust your behavior, even your daily life. Yeah, people with fears are very often affected by that. Yeah, that they might not even go out on the street because they are afraid of the cars. Yeah, sounds funny, but it's not at all. Yeah, so they hardly leave their houses or their apartments because they try to avoid that situation in order to avoid the feelings. So start asking those questions yourself and see um, whether you may find some similarities with that. Um, I hope it's not that far with you. So, but if you're just like with the first two steps, then it might be a good idea um, that you start writing down your beliefs or the behavior you observed about yourself. That is really the first step on that point. And also asking yourself, how am I today? Am I feeling good? Am I feeling bad? And why do I do that? Or instead of what do I need instead? Um, if I if I don't like to do this and that, and maybe even ask yourself specifically, what is it what I need right now? What is it what I need right now? And just really let your mind uh, calm down a bit and just keep repeating, what is it what I really need right now? And you'll recognize even your pulse and your blood circulation slows down a bit because that question calms down really, and you really start thinking of what is it what I really need right now. Try it right after this webinar. Yeah, it's amazing. And maybe at the end of the day, maybe do something like, yeah, a manifest or looking back. How was my day? How did I react on certain things? How did I interact with people? Did I do that the way I want to do it every day, or was my behavior kind of weird or strange, or um, did I have like a funny feeling? Yeah. So really try to give yourself 10 minutes in the evening and sit down with a piece of paper, or as one of the participants suggested, take a walk. Yeah, and try to think about that. Yeah, how was that day? How did I react? Is it really the way? Was it really me reacting that way, or was it my ego instead of my inner self? You're gonna be surprised. You're gonna be surprised. I tell you. I just took a closer look to the clock here, and I realized time's flying. It's already 1949 Central European time here. Um, and I would like to invite you to ask questions here in the chat. We still got like 10 minutes left, and you're most welcome to place your questions in this webinar. If we were running out of time, or in case we're running out of time in answering the questions, I'll be glad to answer your questions afterwards individually by email, or you may also forward your question right away to my email address, which is contact, and mind you, it's written in German, contact with K, at compando.de. So, I'm now eager to listen to your questions, and I hope I can all answer them. Yeah, not too many right now. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, well, if there are no further questions at that point, then I would like to say thank you very much for sharing your time together with me tonight on this webinar concerning recognizing your inner pattern. Oh, stop! I get a signal here. There might be a question at that point. Sorry, I hope I'm not too fast here. I was just a bit scared when I looked at the clock that it was already that late. But of course, I don't want to rush you in coming up with your questions. So uh, you're most welcome. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, so to say, loud and clear. So, okay, then we'll give it some time. And in the meantime, while one of the participants is placing a question, um, I can give you some further information. If you are very much interested, or if you would like to hear more about inner patterns of behavior, or any kind of personal development, you're most welcome to visit my website, which is www.compando.de, compando with C. As you could see it, now I'm learning it, that side, yeah. Or on Facebook, which is facebook.com/compando, and you're most welcome to get in contact with me. Okay, it is not clear for me that you understand me. What can I do? Uh, I can understand you in the chat clearly, but not by voice. Yeah, so the voice is not set up, so it's only like kind of a one-way communication verbally, but you can place every question through the chat, so you would have to type a little bit in order to come up with that. Okay, so the next question is okay, therefore, can I change that? Dear participant, I'm afraid you can't change that. Would it be me to change that in the general settings for the webinar, um, and then it's more like a conference call rather than a webinar. But this can be done, and we can do that, of course. Not now, but with the next one. I don't know whether you could read me with that one. I'd like your ideas, so I need to speak to you personally. Yeah, you're most welcome. If you just go onto my site, or can you read this here? Oh, I'm falling off the chairs now, but I'm just going to repeat my telephone number. So of course you can get into a personal conversation with me. The landline for this is 49 for Germany, 6901. That is the area code. And the telephone number is the 777-2270. So it's 777-2270. Or else by email, contact@compando.de. Or on Facebook, if you can just catch me in a chat, that's okay as well. So we're running out of time right now because the session will be closed automatically by the system pretty soon. So thank you very much for attending this webinar. Um, Stop that. So let's talk tomorrow. Besides the concept, it's great. I'd like more funny pictures explaining the topics. Yeah, I'm glad I will provide you with that. Thank you very much. And yes, have a great time. Thank you for participating and have a great evening to enjoy. Bye.